Hello! From the Next Reels Film Board, this is Tommy Handsome with an important announcement. The following podcast includes movie audio clips that contain unbleeped profanity. Such profanity may include damn, hell, nuts, McGee, doodle, Captain Fuck, and toot toot, here comes the diarrhea parade. Listening discretion is advised.
Streaming services are on the rise, and brick-and-mortar video stores are a thing of the past. We have lost that experience of wandering the aisles and stumbling upon a film we've never heard of. We have replaced the familiar face behind the video store counter with an algorithm to recommend films. With more and more content available, it's harder to know what's worth watching and what might be a waste of your time. There are many hidden gems out there waiting to be discovered, and we want to help you find them. This is Trailer Rewind, a podcast where we discuss and review recently forgotten or overlooked films that are now available to stream at home. Hey, welcome to Trailer Rewind. It's a movie with teen drama, so I have asked Rob Kubasko from Marvel Movie Minute, a fellow father of a teenage girl, to talk about Banana Split.
Do you want to bite my corned beef sandwich? You don't like my sandwiches, my music? I don't think that's how friends work. Maybe we shouldn't be anymore.
We shouldn't be friends? Do the same thing you've been said.
I brought you food afterwards and you didn't even say thank you. Come on.
This is cliche.
Just smile.
April, have your salmon. I'm not hungry.
Mom, she's allowed to be depressed.
Thank you.
No one as good as Nick will ever love her again.
Where did this Clara girl come from anyway?
April, she's here.
How come I've never heard of her?
She's like moved here, so I'm just showing her around.
And you thought, before I show her the Chinese theater, she should see Nick's penis?
Hi. You're April.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to go do a shot?
Why are you being so nice to me? I want a reason to give you a black eye. God, your eyes are pretty.
This was my trailer pick from March 14th, 2020, so it seems like an eon ago, but just, a few short months ago. And what I noted about this was that Hannah Marks, who is one of the writers, was familiar, and star of Banana Split, was familiar to me from the BBC show Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Rob, have you watched Dirk Gently?
No, I have not, but I am familiar with the show.
Okay, so she's the sister of Elijah Wood's character in there, and standout performance there. Pete agreed and said, yes, that's why she looks familiar. And he said it had all the tropes it looked like, but he wondered if it was going to be charming enough to feel original. And Andy gave it a hearty meh. Well. So today is September 17th, and Banana Split is available on Netflix. So this was an interesting one. I tried to dig into when was this released, and all I could find was that it was released digitally on March 27th, 2020. Right. That's it. I couldn't find anything of when was this going to go into theaters or anything, or was it just scooped up by Netflix? I couldn't find anything out about the release of this movie.
So there's an interesting story. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And yes, fellow fathers of teenage women. So I'm certainly looking forward to this. I should note something. The reason why did I select this trailer to be a part of the discussion on? My family, we have from time to time have gotten deep into some episodic television that is geared for teenage audiences. Yes, we watched all the seasons of Pretty Little Liars. And yes, we are great fans of Riverdale until it jumped the shark, and that jumping of the shark would be the levitating babies. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and watch Riverdale, and you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyway, so I love the idea in Riverdale. I was like, oh, Cole Sprouse. I'm just totally blown away by Cole Sprouse. When I saw this trailer, I went, oh my God, my daughter will totally want to see this. Cole Sprouse is in it. And I am completely wrong. And that wouldn't be the first time because it's not Cole Sprouse. It's his twin brother, Dylan Sprouse, that's in this. So when the movie starts and we're watching this all together, and by the way, I should note, we watched this entire movie together as a family. My daughter immediately thought I was an idiot. Again, not the first
Because you
time.
don't know which twin is which twin.
I don't
you can tell
know. I'm like, look,
No.
it's so funny. Cole Sprouse dyed his hair and it's long now. That's crazy. No, I'm a fool. So, look, now here's the thing. So as I'm doing the research on this, and obviously we'll get into the movie, but this movie does have an interesting story of what happened. So it actually, production date and even the editing and stuff looks like it was done, shot in the winter of 2018, and later that year was due to be released. During post-production, they came across a problem that they found they had. What happened is the main character, played by Hannah Marks, is wearing a Bartman shirt through 40% of the filming. And after it was done, right, they didn't have the rights to that. And they tried to get the rights and it didn't work out. They had to CG out Bartman off of all that footage.
Oh my God. Whoa.
Right? I mean, it happens to all of us, I think.
Whoa. Yeah.
So
Somebody in the costume department's not going to be.
Well, they learned a
getting
lot.
job.
I mean,
they learned a lot about that. Yeah.
Maybe hey, this might have been an early job, and you know what?
Yes.
Everybody's got to learn the stories of intellectual property.
Yeah.
As a designer,
Oh, yeah.
I have learned those stories from time to time as well. Cease and desists are never letters you want to receive. So, I get it. I just think it's an amazing story of like how this movie got into sort of a limbo for a year or so.
Wow.
And then, and I just find the story interesting. Look, I'm interested in these movies. What do I like watching? Teenage comedies? No, but I like when they can help relate and foster conversation with my daughter. Like, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think when you can discuss those things and you can laugh, and especially when they are entertaining, that's a good thing. We'll get into the ins and outs of that because there are some. You should know.
So you said you watched this as a family.
Yes.
So now this is not a typical family film,
It
but
is not.
As an older, when you have an older, adult child or,
Right.
17, 18-year-old
Mature child.
yes, I think that's one thing that's refreshing about some of these is that it'll tackle some of those things seriously, and you can have conversations about them, or it'll present it in a lighter way, and you could say, okay, that's, is this real? Is this true? And one of the things that, I had both my daughters watch it, and funnily enough, that, I didn't watch it with them because they're uncomfortable. I'm fine with it. They're a little uncomfortable when things get kind of graphic and descriptive in the language.
Sure.
But, they both said, yeah, this, they could relate to some of this. My oldest said she thought that the relationship between the two main characters reminded her of, what was that Blake Lively, Anna Kendrick one, the Simple Plan, which I thought.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's a completely different movie, but she was connecting to the relationship between the two girls.
Right.
And I thought, okay, that's an interesting dynamic. And my youngest, she said it was nice because it did some different things with the genre of your main character not be, she said it's nice having the main character not be the nice person. And I thought that's interesting. So she said, yeah, I always want to know, is this an accurate portrayal of teen things? Because I think you're probably around the same age as I, growing up with John Hughes, of seeing like, wow, this is like actual like teenager stuff. So I always, sort of check in with them, like the Instagram stuff, all of that. They're like, yeah, I mean, it's not 100%, but it's pretty close to, capturing how teens interact. It's not a 60-year-old man's version of teenagers. It seems like we've got, something more in tune. And I guess having Hannah Marks being one of the writers of that helps contribute.
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, and actually, by the way, the story about the Bartman fiasco is from an article in Variety that I think came out March 27th of this year, of 2020. And they talk about that, and also giving Hannah, obviously she is the co-writer. I mean, this is based on a bit of a life experience and stuff that she had growing up. Look, I think it's good. I think every generation can be summarized in a variety of movies that are those seminal movies that depict what's going on in their life as they're growing up. I think that's a good thing to have. I mean, look, Are you going to watch this? Are some people going to watch this movie? Are you going to be offended? Some people, yes, they will, right? Because it earns its rating on, like you said, some of the descriptive language we'll talk about maybe a little bit too. But here's the deal. Does it give you somewhat of a peek into what today's adolescents, especially teenagers, are going through?
Yeah.
Some of the pressures that they're under, some of the things that are happening within relationships and what they place as important and what's not? Yes, it does. And that's a good thing. Because again, if you're open, and I would encourage everyone to have open conversations, especially with the
Yes.
ones they love. This is a good thing to talk about that. So there we are. My daughter shares my sensibilities and my sense of humor. Again, your mileage may vary. I wouldn't go lower than 17 years old, though. 16.
No.
Again, maybe you should watch it first and then decide on that. But
Yes, it depends on your comfort level. Like I said, I was fine with all of this. I'm like, okay, because for me, in our house, my wife and I often joke that part of our function as a parent is to embarrass our kids, to push them outside of their comfort zone,
of course,
on some of these things of like, yeah, we're going to have this conversation. We're going to laugh at these things that's going to make you uncomfortable, but we need to talk about them, all of those things. So I think, yeah, it's something that I wasn't expecting as much with this, but I should, because it's become a trend. Instead of just the wacky teen comedies of the 90s, it seems like we've got the teen comedies that are tackling something a little bit more serious. I think, like I said, like John Hughes I'm going to take the problems of teenagers and I'm going to treat them respectfully. We can still laugh at the ridiculousness of being a teenager, but there's still a lot of heart and a lot of seriousness that goes on, particularly at key pivot points. I mean, this is about, graduation and moving on and friends growing apart from each other. But overall, how would you rank this in your sphere of films of how you view things? Is this on your scale?
I mean, in terms of, and this is a tough movie to scale because, I mean, again, is this a movie I would watch again? No, not tomorrow, right? Like, I'm glad I watched it. I'm glad I saw it. There's some things that I thought were very funny and very interesting. Is it a groundbreaking cinematography adventure like Scott Pilgrim? No, there's there's nothing here that's, crazy, but it's just really good on candor. The words that I keep coming up with, like you just said a few of them, like I would add candor and I would add authentic, because that's what this seems. There's nothing in here. Well, there's a few scenes, the dining room table scenes involving the mother, that I think do go a little bit above of what normal dinner conversation is, even for the funniest of families. Right. Those are the ones that push the limit of what's real, and they're done there to just make you laugh. I mean, honestly, that's what the purpose of those scenes are. But no, you know what? I would say, it's not an average. I mean, if I had to give this a school, again, because this is dealing with high school, if I had to give this a C plus B minus, it's like somewhere in the middle there. Again, it's not a movie would I watch this again purposely? No. Right. But I am definitely glad I saw it, and so that definitely pushes it up from a C. But it's not a movie that I would rush to watch again.
No, I agree. I felt this was really enjoyable. I don't think that it's as enduring as other films like this. When you compare it to like a Booksmart,
right?
It's at a slightly different level. But for me, I think there's something about the candor that raises it above things. For me, it came in at 3.5 stars. I was wavering on 3 to 3.5, and I think on another watch it may come down, but I'm going to stick with the 3.5. And on my flick chart, there's something, I just have a soft spot in my heart for movies like this, because I feel like it's validating teenagers and their problems, which I think is important.
Absolutely.
Because as you said, the conversation. So for me, it ended up, brushing up against my top 100. It's at 109 out of 636 on my flick chart list, which is an odd spot because you get into this weird zone of, like, it was just below Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, which I thought, okay, that's I wouldn't say those are right next to each other, but just the way Flick Chart will throw things, I thought, okay, I would put Ghost Protocol much higher above that, but there's something about the heart of this one that it nudged it above some other things and just ended in a really odd spot there. But that's where it ended. But I think we agreed. It's if you've got kids, good movie to watch. Maybe watch first, then watch together, tackling some important issues. But so listeners, if you think this is your kind of film and you don't want anything more spoiled before we really get into the story and conversations about dinner conversations, this is your chance to pause the podcast and check out Banana Split on Netflix. Okay, so we're going to dig into Banana Split, which is a typical teen rom-com to start with, right? I mean, that's where we have our little, boy meets girl scene, and we cram, like, it seems like the typical teen romance into the first 10, 15 minutes, where we just like fast forward through all the ups and downs of the relationship until we get to the breakup at graduation, which is one of those things that it's, people are going to be going to different colleges, couples break up, all that. And then we get what I thought was an interesting sort of convention of the countdown to orientation. We would get these title cards throughout that would just tell us like how far it is to orientation, as that's like the key point where we're sort of like at the point of no return. Because once we hit orientation, we're moved on, right?
No, I totally agree. I got the feeling of a Bizarro Up universe. And when I mean Up, I mean Pixar Up, right? Like, where Pixar Up has this beautiful montage about life. This one does too, but it's not it's not nearly as serious. It's literally what I guess the last 6 months of this main character's senior year, right? And like, and you're just kind of like, okay, right? And I enjoyed that because I like the fact that it got right into the heat of the story, right? And like you said, the story really is the summer before college. So you definitely, this isn't crazy amount of time. This is definitely like 2 to 3 months that we're going to go over. And I do like how they've got those little milestone markers of, countdowns to orientation. So, when you compare it to like other movies that deal with this stuff like Lady Bird or, those kind of movies, I think this was here was an attempt to just give something a little different creative spin to kind of make you go, oh, I wonder what's next.
Right.
Where does this go? What happens? So, yeah.
So we've got our, the love story that we think we're going to fall in love with. We watch that crumble. And then, in the devastation, in the aftermath, April finds out about her ex's new girlfriend, whose name is Clara. And what I loved about this was that her friend, on the way to the party, one of her friends has, created a fake Instagram account to follow Clara, so that they basically can spy on her. And I didn't have my notes. It was like, Tatiana Realicious is the fake Instagram account name. And you're thinking, how does she not know that Tatiana Realicious? Why would you let that person follow you? Well, we'll find out later on. But that sets up we're going to the party. April is, sort of, spying on Instagram on her ex's, new girlfriend. And of course, when we get to the party, everyone is there. It's the party that everybody's at. So we're there and we have the whole scene. I think in every like teen movie, we're at the party where it's like in a huge house. There's kids everywhere. There's booze everywhere. Right. She needs to talk to her friend Ben about Clara and all that, and says, meet me in the bedroom. Ben finally tracks her down. Is like, dude, this is like a huge house. This is the third bedroom I've been in, right?
Yes.
So we get the backstory on who this Clara is, but then soon after that, we actually have Clara shows up to talk with April. They have a frosty little meeting to start, but then seem to hit it off out on the dance floor. Right. But after a few shots, we get sort of their first like heart-to-heart meeting with each other in the bathroom. It's sort of this bonding moment of girl relationships here.
I can hold my own hair. You were the one who was supposed to puke.
Sorry. How do you feel?
Hungry.
Oh. I saw some fancy cheese in the fridge.
Please stop.
Stop what?
Why are you being so nice to me?
I mean, what? Do you want me to be like a bitch to you?
Kind of. I want a reason to give you a black eye. God, your eyes are pretty.
Your eyes are pretty.
And your boobs, they're like really good.
No. It's a push-up bra. Yep.
Could I ask you something?
Yeah.
Why isn't Nick here with you?
I don't know. Ask Ben.
They are so gay together.
I know.
And what I found really interesting, aside from the fact that, of course, it's, two girls that should hate each other, connecting. It's, the scene starts off with the, I can hold my own hair type of thing. And I thought, okay, no, you can't. How drunk are you? But I guess it's that inhibitions are gone through alcohol that allows the girls to just let the guard down and have that moment with each other, where they just share a little bit about sort of their mutual, I don't know, respect or admiration for each other. Of course, capping off, with if boys spend so much time together, why are they so gay together? Which is the punchline comes off of the visual gag of the fact that April's got her hand on Clara's breast for the second half of that conversation.
Now, and when you've gone to that, as you've explained that, as two adult males talk about this, let me just say, you kind of now know where this movie's going. Like, if you had any questions about the tone and the sensibility, okay, yeah, this is where it is. It's very frank. It's very candid. And yes, it will shock, and I'm certainly confound certain people, adults who watch this. But it's, like I said, it's very candid. And I think what this movie does is, even though the main character doesn't have the greatest plan, or certainly it's not a good thing to do, that what she's trying to do here. Mm-hmm. This movie is what the big running gag here is vulnerability.
Yes.
Right? Allowing yourself to be vulnerable in situations, especially when you're a teenager. My God, right? Your defenses are up all the time. How do you mitigate, and how do you navigate being vulnerable with the people who are around you, and then the relationships that come out of that? A stronger relationship when there maybe shouldn't have been a relationship, there is, because you can just commiserate with them. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, and we get to the scene, which, again, why is this movie called Banana Split? And the only thing I can think of is their pivotal conversation happens as they're eating a banana split, as they're sharing sort of their common experiences, and realize, okay, this is going to get awkward, because that's where we get the line of like, oh, when he calls his dick a Quidditch stick, and it's like, he hasn't done that with me. We've crossed boundaries, and then we get to, they set up the rules, and that's how they create their safe space we can be friends. And how do we block out all the other sort of, drama of being a teenager? We let this be just about us. Right. Let this not be about Nick. Let this not be about any of that. We're not going to talk about him. We'll insulate our social media, all of this, so that basically they can have a safe space, which I think is an important thing for kids to have, because it shows that sometimes you have to push out all the noise, and then they can really be connected to each other. Yes. Of course, being a comedy, we quickly have to come up with a joke here. So then it's we've got great rules like Fight Club. I'll be Brad Pitt, and then I'll be George Clooney. And she's like, why would you can be George Clooney? Oh well, and then we get insight into Clara, who's very much a different person. She watched Fight Club while, doing a bunch of whippets. So that's why she thinks George Clooney is in the movie Fight Club. And we get the contrast between April and Clara. And we see this develop throughout their conversations of April, who's, been intimate with like one person, versus Clara, who's had many men. Right. And as she said, please don't refer to my vagina as a room. But again, that's where we get the candor that these two girls can share with each other. And that's where then we spend the bulk of the film with the relationship between these two girls that should hate each other for all reasons, but have managed to push all that aside and just connect with each other to try to help each other figure out their path in life.
Can I just throw out something that's a little ridiculous?
Of course.
Knowing me, right? What's it going to be?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think the name implies, the title of the movie. Because a banana split traditionally is 3 scoops of ice cream, mix-matched toppings that are all put together. And what are we talking about? All inside a split banana. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I have to say, I'm not trying to go too deep here. I don't want to go into, because we're not talking about this minute by minute. Your mind starts to do things to you like, oh, I see what they're doing here. I got it.
Splitting the banana. Okay.
And by the way, I got to mention, I don't know if that was the scene where she talks about, Clara's character from Fresno, and she's been with, obviously, a bunch of men. That sequence where they're talking about the men she's been with.
Oh, yes.
And it's this, and what they do is they just flash on like 14 guys and they're all naked with their hands covering the genitals, right?
Yeah.
But on a white background. And I
Yeah.
got to tell you something, every single one of us in the room just started laughing at that scene.
Yes.
It was very funny. It was a very funny way to do this in a way that's not, we should note, in case you're wondering, obviously there is no actual nudity in this movie, right?
Right.
But obviously there's some implied stuff. But yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we were like, well, that's kind of amusing the way to do that. Please don't do that. But yes, that's kind of a a good way to do that.
It's the girls flipping around. We've got the objectification of the men, and it's just they're these, and it's again we've got a variety of types of different guys there, but they're just there
meat.
as
they're meat.
Exactly. yes. Exactly.
No. No, this is, and going all the way back to this, obviously nice to see, and I mean this as a father of a daughter. Look, I'm glad to see that we've got, here's you got Hannah Marks. Here's a young female voice who's obviously got some really good stuff ahead of her because this is some really talented work. I'm glad to see more female perspective, and I am not just blowing smoke up anybody's backside saying that. I genuinely mean that because certainly we need to see more of that.
Oh, definitely. And then that's where we get into, and I don't even, we have basically two male characters. We've got Nick and Ben, but everybody else, it's because we've got April and we've got her mom and her sister. We've got all of their conversations because dad's gone. And I'm assuming Hannah Marks has a younger sister or one of the other writers has a younger sister, because the first dinner scene after the breakup, where her little sister has this huge crush, and then rolls out her dream of her relationship with Nick, where they're going to have the Spanish mansion and a whale, and they're going to have 5 kids, and they're going to be named like Will I Am and Cher, and we need to have some of the Beatles in there too, so it'll be John Lennon and Paul McCartney. It's just like such a maturity, gap between the two of them. But I mean, humorous, and it reminds me of going back to Better Off Dead, when John Cusack's got the younger brother that's way more mature. It's like for comic effect. Here we've done the same thing. We've got the younger sister for comic effect, who seems older than her years in some ways. Right. With the knowledge that she has that is often shocking to her mother, but also still very immature in her concept and understanding of how the world works.
Oh, that's a perfect connection. Absolutely. No, that's what the purpose of that character is. And you've also then got the mother, Susan, who, it's played by Jessica, I might mess this last name up, Hecht? Is that her? Okay. I wondered why she looked so familiar. And I realized she played the character of Lilla Vogel, who is Lloyd's mother in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Oh. The movie about Mr. Rogers from late last year.
Okay.
And I was like, why do you look familiar? And when I went back and looked and stuff, I saw, that's what she was last in. Or one of the movies that she was recently in. And and the mother just plays this character of this mother who is nonplussed by any of the vulgarities that come out of her younger daughter's mouth. Is nonplussed by any of the ridiculous arguments that then ensue. And is just willing to just dive right in and go, you both need to shut up, right?
Yes.
I very much enjoyed that. That was the funniest parts of the movie for me, were any of the interactions between the main character, April, the younger daughter, and the mother. The younger sister, and the mother. Yeah. Loved it. Yeah, that I really enjoyed.
So we as we progress through the relationship, and what's interesting is that early on, as they're establishing the rules, they sort of get the big elephant in the room out of the way of, because Claire says, well, should we make out now? And then April's like, well, no, I'm not a lesbian. So it's clear that this is not a romantic relationship. This is just an intimate friendship between the two of them. So they get that question out of the way up front. And then we spend time with them until, the tension starts to build. There's lots of funny moments along the way. Because April works at a movie theater, and I couldn't go past the point of the discussion about whether Pirates of the Caribbean or Tomorrowland was the best movie based on a Disney ride. And then defeating his argument by basically saying, well, Tomorrowland's not really a ride, it's a land. Right?
And this is Jacob, right? Is this the conversation she has with her boss?
Yeah.
It's played by Jacob Batalon.
Right, yes.
From Spider-Man fame.
From Spider-Man.
The man in the chair.
The man in the chair. And I was like, it's the perfect example of the guy that so desperately wants the attention of the girl and wants to do something with her and has no skills to figure out how to do that, because that was his way to say, hey, but I've got a platinum pass to Disneyland if you ever want to go with me.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So that's his big ask right there of like, this is how I'm going to, break the ice and get going. Pirates of the Caribbean or Tomorrowland, best Disney ride, or best movie based on a Disney ride. Oh no. So then we've got the character of Ben, who is Clara's cousin, and he's the one that's stuck in the middle of all this. He's the one that is aware of everything. They've sworn him to secrecy. He can't talk about all this, and inevitably things are going to come to a head because they're out at a cafe diner one night, and this is after. I guess we need to mention that when Nick's birthday comes, that April sends him a happy birthday text.
Right.
So we've got that plants a seed for what is to come, and that is the eventual confrontation, because Ben and Clara and April are out, and so Nick calls Ben first, and Ben is not a smooth talker under pressure, bobbles that conversation very humorously. Then they chew him out, like, why did you even answer that call? Nick calls Clara. She's like, this is how you handle it. Click, sends him to voicemail. Then they are all surprised when he calls April next. And why would he be calling his ex-girlfriend? And that's where the cracks start to happen. And we get the reveal that, April shares that she texted him and why. And that's where the tension sort of mounts between April and Clara. And there's another party coming up. And it's these two parties that sort of capstone the whole relationship between them. Between them, they meet there. And then we've got this final party, and April says she's not going to go. She ends up going with her friends, and there is just the iciest conversation, because Ben and April and Clara knows what's going on. Nick has no idea what's going on, and it's just the most awkward scene. Of course, April, Ben, lots of drinking, which then downward spiral, and they end up having to decide to leave the party. They're going to get a lift, and that's where Ben basically calls her out on what's been going on.
Go ahead and say it.
Say what?
Everything. I'm an idiot.
I don't think we should do this in front of Steve.
Oh, fuck Steve. Come on.
Jesus.
This is what you've been waiting for. Lay it on me.
What are you, a dock worker?
Lay it on me!
No yelling in the lift, please. Look, I don't have to tell you you're an idiot. You know you're an idiot.
Well, she's the one who started it.
We're not 6 years old, April.
Oh, don't yell in the lift, Ben.
I thought you wanted me to lay it on you.
Well, I changed my mind.
What is it you want?
I don't know.
And given the fact that this is a romantic comedy, I guess, I don't know, is it how in action movies, in car chases, you've always got the fruit cart or the pile of cardboard boxes. In every teen rom-com, are we going to have a Lyft or Uber driver scene? Because I think of this one, there's the one in Booksmart. Is that where we just have a scene now where we're in a ride share where teens will have a conversation that's important?
Well, and here's the deal. You know how you'll immediately know how that ride is going to turn out is whether or not they're actually using the Lyft or Uber name. Because here's what you know by that situation is the driver's going to be great. He's going to act appropriately. He's not going to allow anything bad to happen. The ride's going to go well. If anything goes wrong, it's going to be because of the fault of those passengers, and they're going to be politely asked to leave, which is what happens in here.
Yes, it does.
When you want to do a movie with a crazy rideshare driver, it will be called Zubermobile.
Right.
So you kind of knew that was going to happen. I thought that was really funny. I'm like,
yes, exactly. No yelling in the lift. Okay.
Yes.
But at that point when, Ben asks April what it is she wants, she says, I don't know. And then he makes his move. He kisses April, which is, I don't know if anybody saw that coming. Ben's that third wheel, but I think it's that whole thing of he's the wingman, and it's okay, here's the time to move in on the X.
I got to tell you, I was actually rooting for this as we were watching the movie, because Ben's played by an actor, Luke Spencer Roberts. He looks okay, and this is just how he appears in the movie. He's very white, very pale, looks like a typical high school kid you would imagine.
Yeah,
has this bushy, long, bright red mop of hair.
Yes,
he's adorable. Like if this was the guy my daughter was dating, I would feel completely fine. I would feel fine no matter what. I trust my daughter, but I should note that in case she listens. But look, this guy he was just nice. He was the nice guy who was just trying to be a good friend to everyone, which was impossible. But
Right.
yeah, I wasn't surprised, but I was like, oh, this makes sense. And then the sequence that follows this is hilarious for a variety of reasons.
Oh, you're talking about when they're making out in the bushes?
Yeah, they're making out in the bushes, like because they got kicked out of the lift.
Because they got kicked out of the lift, but it's the payoff to the setup earlier on when April and Clara have been talking about Ben, because Clara can't have a relationship with Ben because they're cousins, and that would be incest and not the hot kind. And then Clara asks April, Clara asks April, and she's like, well, no, because I never imagined there was anything there. So when they're making out and she gropes him, it's like, oh, there it is. Is the
Yeah, it is pretty. It is the stuff you would expect to see in a teen romantic comedy that's pushing the line of what you would expect to see. So again, makes total sense. But I love the character though, he was the one that again you just felt the nicest about because he was just trying to be good and helpful to everybody.
Yes, he was. And this is where we get what I was trying to plot along in your regular rom-com, and it comes back to the rule that I first learned about in Swingers, which is when you're trying to get over somebody, as soon as you forget about them, that's when they call. And it's like April's upset about, and Nick's part of it, but I think there's more upset about the whole fight with Clara. So that, of course, the next morning when Nick shows up outside her house of like, hey, let's talk, that we see the misunderstanding April had, because she's like, this whole breakup, and he's like, you broke up with me, and she's like, no, you broke up with me, and it's this misunderstanding of who broke up with who. And I think that's her realization of, oh, he was talking about this but didn't mean to, and she took it and said, oh, well, we're breaking up. So she's the one to blame for the breakup of the relationship.
And we should point back that montage that happens at the beginning of the movie where you see the entire lifespan of their relationship. At the end, it's a very argumentative. They're fighting over every little thing.
Yes.
There's some passive aggressiveness going on. There's a whole lot of stuff happening.
Yes.
And so you understand that. You can kind of see where, and people do this. This doesn't not just teenagers. Everybody this happens in relationships.
Yes.
Yeah, there were some things that that were said and then were assumed, and then decisions were made, and then destruction happened.
Exactly. But we get it. They sort of, I guess they, I don't know how secure schools are in other parts of the country, but
exactly.
I was like, you just sort of hop the fence, you walk into the school, you can get into the office, and you just grab the PA system, and you can just be, and nobody's around, of course, right?
No, there's a whole sequence where they go on this like field day, right, together, where they break into their former high school, and they have the full run of the place, and I'm like, no, what is going on here? Because if you go back to the milestones, this is near the end of the summer.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting the school ready. Like,
I know.
This is before pandemic stuff. Like, what are you doing? You just had to check your brain at that.
It must have been a week. It must have been a Saturday or Sunday, right? I guess. Sure. I don't know. But it's their opportunity to sort of have closure to their relationship there. But things are still left on the rocks with April and Clara, but we do get that final resolution when Clara shows up. We've got all kinds of little sort of side stories that get resolved. There's a whole thing with April not having her driver's license that plays out through, so she ends up getting her driver's license. So we get the accomplishment of that, and that's how we end with the two of them, with April getting in the car with Clara, and they're going to just drive off. Right? They're just going to go for a drive because they're, April's leaving the next day. So they've got their friendship, they've reconnected, they're friends again. They're going to be apart, unless of course something happens in a sequel, who knows? Right, we'll see. Right. But we have that nice resolution of, okay, April's at peace with herself, with Clara, with Nick, and we drive off to the stop sign at the end of the street. And that's where we end this one. So it's there's a lot of, as I went back through trying to like identify key points, there's a lot of funny moments, but there's not a lot of substance to this that I feel like there's something super meaningful, but I think it is light entertainment that's enjoyable, on a watch. And maybe if I was younger and connected with the characters a little bit more, like, oh, I totally know this person, might be worth rewatching a couple times. But I don't see it as a classic. But it was definitely something that it was better than I thought and had hoped for, because there were more laughs than I anticipated with this. And the things that were unexpected, like Clara teaching April how to urinate when you're out hiking out in public.
Yeah, there's all those moments. It's littered, no pun intended. Mm-hmm. It is littered with such moments like that are just kind of cute friendship things that just make you smile. I mean, it's right.
Yes. Carly Rae Jepsen references.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Call Me Maybe. Oh, no. Oh, my God. When she looks at the wall and it's the gift, and I'm like, okay. No. There's some funny, cute stuff in this. No, look, what is the purpose of this? If you're a teen, you're going to laugh because you're going to see your life. You're going to see real life in this. And again, the sensibilities may be different. I mean, I'm not saying every teen is doing everything that is depicted in this movie, but you have Ben characters, you have the people, like the main characters, everything. And it's worth to talk about. Again, if you're an adult, and especially if you're a parent, you'll do that. Look, here's a couple things that are good about this movie. It's, like I said, again, it's candid. You see the way social media now fits into an adolescent's life, where it not only is it, I mean, I know we used to talk 5-10 years ago, oh, it's their connection to the world. Well, now it is. Again, life is a little bit changed.
Right.
But no, what it shows you is that this is another way in which they use to build or destroy relationships.
Yes.
Like real relationships. Because, especially the whole fake Instagram. Oh, I didn't know which was going on, so did this. We didn't mention actually, and this isn't, and again, anyone who's ever been a person knows this, April does have these 2 additional friends that are not the best friends. That I mean, to say the least, the party girls,
yes,
and of course they're brought in just for a few little subplot movement and some laughs. But look, you understand that, especially at that age, everyone's at a different point in their life. Everyone's trying to figure out what their next step is, and we've talked about this a lot. Especially again, if you have a teenager, male or female, this is that step in life where you're like, okay, now I'm going to create my life.
Yes.
Right? Like you're going on to that stage where maybe you've had the same friends for 13 years, with kindergarten. And now you're like, okay, now I know who I kind of want to be. And now I want to be that person. I don't want to be encumbered by the baggage I've had before. That's what this movie is. It is dealing with some of those issues. Yes. So look, are you going to agree with it? Is anyone going to watch this movie and say, oh, I totally relate or I totally agree with anything? No, of course not. That's not what the movie's for. It's to understand what's going on in your teen's head. a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
A little bit more. Maybe with less drinking. Maybe with a little bit less drinking.
I mean, I kind of wish, I got to say, like, okay, I hope it's not, I don't know, right? In some places it is. I hope that's not that. Also, and I, again, just putting this out there objectively, there is sex, right? I mean, so like, and obviously different people will have different sensibilities on how they will talk about that. Again, no nudity, but you've got that. And then, there is the discussion. I mean, it's very raw and it's very candid discussion. And again, not just between the characters of the same age, but the little sister and the mother. Look, this is where life is sometimes. To me, I guess, the more I talk about it, look, I think it's a good movie. To me, one of my favorite movies of the genre that I have seen in recent years is Lady Bird. Is it as good as Lady Bird? No, I would watch Lady Bird, of course, again. But was there value in seeing this again? Yes.
Yeah. So if you saw and liked Lady Bird, if you saw and liked Booksmart, and you're looking for something else, it's not going to match up to that, but it's in the zone with that because it'll give you some of the feels, it'll give you some of the laughs. It's not going to hit as heavy, it's not going to have as big a laughs, but it's going to be right in that zone. And I think it's for Hannah Marks, I think great. Getting out there, putting this together. Yes, learn about Bartman clearly in the next time around. But yeah, I know I was really impressed. I'm looking forward to what her next project is. Seeing that being able to construct a really competent and intelligent story that takes the issue seriously without being too overdramatic to say, oh, look at us teenagers and it's so rough. It's like, no, because there's a lot of poking fun at the things, and but still the realism, and makes me think about the fact that maybe I don't want to, I don't know where Ben and Nick were working, but apparently they were high all the time while working there, and I don't want to think about the teens.
Those donuts or that bread, it was a bakery of some kind.
Yes,
Those donuts
exactly.
were something, I am sure. Yeah, that made me laugh a little, more than a little bit. And also, I don't know if we've mentioned Clara was played by Liana Liberato.
Oh, okay, right.
I'll tell you something. Great performance. I mean, acting in general. I mean, good acting is obviously an art. For all these kids who are young actors, and Dylan Sprouse obviously, and Jessica Hecht are probably the two most experienced. Jacob probably is third there. Hey, great job. I mean,
yes.
Is it believable? Yes. There's no bad performance in this. So hey, no, it's good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to con my daughter into watching another one of these though together. Just maybe.
you did your time on this one, and well, it's because you got the you've got to choose smartly. And what I've learned is sometimes you don't say, hey, let's watch this together. You say, hey, I'm going to be doing this podcast. Maybe you want to watch that, and then they get to think, well, maybe I can guide this conversation on this podcast and give them some tips about what to talk about, and then you can have the conversations.
Just please, if you do that, just know who the actors are. Don't just. Good God! See, it's Cole Sprouse. That's not Cole Sprouse, Dad. Son of a...
There's a thing called IMDb, Dad. Come on.
He's a twin. How was I supposed to know? I thought he stopped acting.
Yes.
Which, interesting story on that too is that, he has. I mean, Dylan he took a break from acting, and I think there was a couple interviews he did where he said, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, if you don't know this, was a huge deal on the Disney Channel for many years. This is where both of them had acted. He said he actually took a break from acting because he really wanted to know if that's what he wanted to do. And so break has been concluded, and now he's like, I'll pick and choose what I want to do. And I think to be in that position, more power to you.
Oh yeah.
That's
cool.
I
think this, I think again, making a smart choice of doing something that, again, and I get that a lot with the Disney stars of like, I'm going to do the anti-Disney thing. I'm going to be the long-haired, pot-smoking hooligan ex-boyfriend in this movie.
Right.
But did it well. Yeah. So I mean, yes, hats off to everybody on this. I think again, a great starting point, and looking forward to see where things go with them. I think we've split the banana split. We've dug into it and got all we could out of it. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to Trailer Rewind. And if there's anything we said here that entertained, educated, or even enraged you, we'd like you to tell people about this podcast. Whatever your podcast listening platform is, please share, rate, or write a short review. It helps other podcast listeners find us. And if you enjoy connecting with other film fans, you can become a member of our community on Discord. There's all kinds of conversations about Disney things like Mulan. Is Tenet ever going to be, making back all its money? All kinds of great conversations about that. Great debates about films. We'd just love to have you as part of our community. You can check that out over on our website, thenextreel.com. Rob, it was great having you on here talking about a movie that we can share with our kids, as uncomfortable and as awkward as that might have been.
Indeed. Hey, I love doing this. This was great. Thanks for having me on, and just appreciate it, and look forward to the next one.
Hondo.